Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Geek-Stew. And today, guys, welcome back to an episode of Horror Stew. That is right. So today, guys, I'm going to be doing a tier list, my official tier list for Resident Evil for my Horror Stew video. And you're probably asking yourself, haven't you already kind of ranked the Resident Evil games before? And you know what? I 100% have. But here's the deal. I've never made an official tier list. And I've always wanted to make one. And I thought, what better time to do it than on a video? Now, I'm going to let you know, I've been trying to make this video for a couple, at least like, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. And for whatever reason, I couldn't get my screen capture to work on my iPad. So you're probably going to see a little bit of a smaller screen because I'm going to do it on my iPhone. But do not worry. It's still going to be amazing. It's still going to be fun. So check out my tier list. If you like it, go ahead and give it a subscribe and a comment and a like and whatever else. And if you want to join the Geek-Stew crew, hit us up on social media. Twitter is best. Let us know. We're always looking to expand our product. But here we go, guys. My official tier list for the Resident Evil franchise. Alright, folks, so here we go. We are on tiermaker.com, which is actually a really cool website where you can make tier lists on a web page. I did try this on my laptop, and this works as well on a laptop concept as well, so actually really cool. They have different tier lists made by other people, and this one is just the Resident Evil Games 2020 tier list maker. Now, of course, this is not going to include the Resident Evil or the RE-verse or the Resident Evil 8 game, because those two are not quite out yet, although those are coming out very soon. I'm very excited. Anyhow, here are the ranks. We have S, A, B, C, D, and F. Quick explanation. S is absolutely legendary tier games. These games are games that have infinite replayability and, in my opinion, are the best of the best. Any Resident Evil fan should play these games. A tier are games that are still pretty good, but they too, in some respect, maybe they didn't match up to what the S rank, requires of the Resident Evil games. Maybe the games in the A rank tier don't have as much replayability. Maybe there's just not enough there to play. But B rank is still a solid game, games that I do enjoy, but perhaps they don't have any replayability. Maybe it's just the story itself, and that's pretty much all there is to it. C rank games are still solid games, but they just continue to let us down. These are games that, as you'll see, are still fun and interesting to look back on, but maybe they just didn't hold up to the rest of the series. D rank are games that really just failed us in some way, but not as much as F rank, because F rank games are absolutely unplayable. So we're going to go down here and we're going to start us off with Resident Evil Code Veronica. Now, I know what you're going to say. Where would you put Code Veronica? And in my opinion, I'm going to put Code Veronica as a B rank game. The only reason I put it as a B rank, in my opinion, because Resident Evil Code Veronica is way too fucking long. I actually made a 3-part series where I talked about all the Resident Evil games in its entirety, and I actually made an entire episode about the Code Veronica conundrum. Code Veronica, to me, doesn't really belong as a main series or even a spin-off title game. Code Veronica just really is there, and it's so long and just, in my opinion, not necessarily unplayable, but in a way unplayable. So Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles is going to be a C rank. So I'm not saying it's bad at all, but it's a good game. It's a rail shooter. It's very House of the Dead-esque. And it really just retreads old grounds, very similar to that of the Umbrella Chronicles, which I'm going to go ahead and throw up here and put it in the C rank as well. Not because either of these games are inherently bad, but because these games just don't really do anything new. Moving on, we have Resident Evil Outbreak. So Resident Evil Outbreak is a good quality game. I'm going to put it on the same rank as Code Veronica as a B tier. Part of the reason I'm going to put it as a B tier, and I'm actually going to put both of them here. Let's see which one we have here. Blah, 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 blah. Where is Outbreak Final 2? Here it is. Okay, so Outbreak Final 2 kind of goes in the same category, just because, in my opinion, these games are great. They have a good concept and they're very interesting, but I didn't get to play these games in their peak. I didn't get to play the online multiplayer, and so that's sort of why I'm going to give it a lesser score, but not to say that they're not still good games, but I couldn't play them in their entirety. Very excited for the possibility of a remake, but I guess we'll just have to see. We're going to put Resident Evil 4 as an A rank. And the reason I'm going to give Resident Evil 4 an A rank instead of an S rank is normally I would give it an S rank, but Resident Evil 4 sort of does what I would say is a most commonly agreed upon bad move. Resident Evil 4 set us down the track of a third-person action shooter, and I love Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is one of the most replayable games in my opinion. It has Mercenaries, Project or Simon Ada, separate ways, as well as lots of unlockables and stuff for the actual main story. So Resident Evil 4 has the best replayability of pretty much any game in the series, but it did set us down the wrong path, which is why I'm going to skip to Resident Evil 5 and 6, because they both belong in a certain, basically Resident Evil 5 is a B tier, and Resident Evil 6 is in fact a C tier. Here's why. Resident Evil 5 was a step in the wrong direction. Resident Evil 6 was a step in the complete opposite direction, but not in a good way. Resident Evil 6 basically took us down the path that we didn't want to have to take, and it honestly was super bland. You know, the Leon storyline was just barely playable. The Chris story mode was too actiony, and I'm not even going to talk about the other one. And the Ada campaign was broken. They had to issue a patch when the game came out to basically make it even somewhat playable. The Resident Evil 5 game was great in some aspects, but if you're not playing with another person, you have to handle with very difficult AI, and quite frankly, it fails in a lot of ways that Resident Evil 4 didn't. That being said, we're going to move on to Resident Evil, the original. We're talking about the original Resident Evil Director's Cut. It is an A rank game. Super fantastic, super fun. It is an original, but it does fail in some ways, which is why, as part of this conversation, I will be moving up here to Resident Evil 2, the original, to put it into rank S. Resident Evil 2, in my opinion, is probably one of the best Resident Evil games, and it is by and large better than the original Resident Evil 1 game. You're probably asking yourself, how is that even possible? And my only response to you is this. Resident Evil was a great game, had a lot of great potential and concept, but for its time, it doesn't hold up. Neither does any of the other games for that matter in some respects, but Resident Evil 2 at least attempts to be a timeless game. It attempts to hold up. Resident Evil 2 does have some replayability, of course, depending on which port or console version you're playing. It does have some extra modes that can potentially make the game a little more interesting for you. But Resident Evil 2, in my opinion, really does what Resident Evil 1 does, but it does it so much better. We're moving on to Resident Evil the Remake. Resident Evil the Remake will also go into rank A because it's a great remake, and in fact, it is a perfect look at what a remake should be. And speaking of remakes, we're going to look at Resident Evil 2 Remake, which belongs up at the top as well as an S-rank legendary, absolute amazing fucking game. Resident Evil 2 Remake has so much replayability with all of its game modes, as well as the various modes in which it tries to present the different storylines, the A and B campaigns for each of the main protagonists. But while we're on the topic of remakes, we're just going to put Resident Evil 3 Remake and Ferrari Resistance right down here in F where they belong. You're probably asking, why? Resident Evil 3 Remake was great. Resident Evil 3 Remake was so much fun. And you know what I have to say to that? You're 100% correct. Resident Evil Remake was so much fun. But the fact that they broke down what was an amazing game years ago, and they created this very short, very concise game, just absolutely breaks my heart. And there's no replayability. Sure, you can unlock some different guns, you can unlock different tokens like you can in Resident Evil 2 to make the games better, or whatever the case may be. But here is what I'm going to say. Resident Evil 3 failed us all. Resident Evil Resistance was a spit in the face. That was supposed to be our anniversary present for being wonderful Resident Evil fans, and it was just garbage. Anyway, before I start crying, we're going to go on to Resident Evil 7, which is a S-rank game as well. You're probably thinking, how is it Resident Evil 7 an S-rank game? Because, here's the deal. Resident Evil 7 is great. Resident Evil 7 is so good. And here's the deal. Resident Evil 7 is, in my opinion, probably the best modern Resident Evil game that we've had. Albeit Resident Evil 2 Remake was good, but Resident Evil 7 really just amped up the horror. It really brought us back to our roots of being just a scary, spooky, just crazy thrill ride. And honestly, I hope Resident Evil 8 can continue down that path. Resident Evil Dead Aim, we're going to put as a C because honestly, Resident Evil Dead Aim does the worst of all things. It does a bad first-person game, and it's not a real great third-person game either. It could be better, it could be worse, but, is what it is. Resident Evil Gaiden is a D rank because while Resident Evil Gaiden is not unplayable, it isn't exactly the best game in the whole world. It has a lot of issues that I don't really care for, but it is what it is. We're going to move on to the Revelations. Revelations 1 is a B rank, and Revelations 2, weirdly enough, is a rank. Revelations 2 was really fantastic, and if you've never played it, you're really missing out. Honestly, Revelations 2 is probably the best Resident Evil game in the modern age, with the exception of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2 Remake. I think Revelations 2 is probably better than any game that we had in the last 10 years, obviously without the ones I just mentioned. But Revelations 1 definitely put us on the right track, and it was actually really interesting because it was the first, I guess you would say, really mobile actual game. We did have some other remakes, such as Deadly Silence, as you can see here, and as the, Mercenaries 3D, which were both all right, but they didn't do the same thing that Revelations did. And that being said, I am going to put Deadly Silence as a C and Mercenaries as a C, not because they're bad games, but they're just kind of just all right. They're not the best games in the whole world, but they're not also the worst games in the whole world. I can't really say too much about them. I've only played both of them once, and they're just that. They're just okay. Resident Evil Survivor is going to be a D, not because I don't like the story, just because it's hard to play. They don't have Survivor 2, but I would put Survivor 2 in the same category. Resident Evil 0, I would put up here with Resident Evil 1 in the A category, because they're both about the same game in some ways. They have very similar looks and very similar builds, but they're just a little bit different in regards to story, obviously. And then, of course, we have Umbrella Chronicle Core, which is absolutely unplayable, and Umbrella Operation Raccoon City, which is also absolutely unplayable. And then I'm not even going to talk about either of those because I hate them both so much. Resident Evil 3 is going to be S rank as well. So actually, I will talk about them for a second. Operation Raccoon City, honestly, not that it's a bad game, but again, it's one of those situations where we could have gotten a better game, for sure. Umbrella Core was also a horrible game that we were given as an anniversary present. That was absolutely fucking garbage. And then Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is a classic. Resident Evil 3, in my opinion, gave us more of an action-packed game, and I would almost put it at an A rank if it weren't for the fact that this game had so much replayability. The Mercenaries mode could be played over and over again. There were different costumes, different unlocks, and all kinds of other stuff that drove you to continue to play the game. There are different routes that you can take during Resident Evil 3 that can give you different game experiences, meaning that Resident Evil 3, in my opinion, deserves the classic S-rank title, as well as its predecessor and as well as its successor, as being the remake of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7. So here is my official rankings. I'm just going to kind of scroll back through here for you and show you these wonderful, wonderful games, and I hope that you guys liked it. I want to know what your guys' ranks are, so I'll probably include the link to this in the description down below so you guys can make your own tier lists. And as always, if you have anything that you would change, I want you to put that in the comments. I want you to tweet me about it. But anyhow, we're going to close up here and we're going to give some final thoughts on my tier list. So final thoughts. Man, I love making tier lists. I'll probably do some more in the future, but really talking about these different Resident Evil games got me to thinking about how excited I am for Resident Evil 8. And I really want to be able to give you some kind of gameplay or something. So I'm going to try and figure that out because I really want to be able to show you guys, the game that I'm playing and everything else. Because quite frankly, Resident Evil 8 is just such an amazing project that I'm so excited for. I just, cannot wait. There's so much great stuff coming from that. And I'm actually kind of excited for our, RE-verse or something like that. Or maybe that was, no, the other one was Resistance. This one's called RE-verse. So I'm kind of excited for RE-verse. I feel like they hopefully learned their lesson from Resistance, because Resistance was just not good at all. They probably lost a lot of money on that, and I'm glad that they did. So thankfully, they did what they should have done, and they made Resident Evil 8 into a more bulky, more power-filled game. I hope they did the same thing they did with Resident Evil 7 by including some other stories to go along with it, like the band footage and whatnot. And I'm really excited for it, and ranking these games just made me even more excited. So I'm super pumped to play Resident Evil 8, and I'm really interested to see where the story goes, because as I've heard, there's going to be another game in this game series for Resident Evil 9 following the story of Ethan Winters. So fingers crossed that we hear some more about that soon. And of course, we've heard today actually, which is today's Thursday, prior to this video coming out, we actually heard an announcement that they are making an official VR version of Resident Evil 4, which looks absolutely incredible. So there's so much to look forward to in the Resident Evil world, so keep up to date on that. I'll try and get some more videos out about it in the following weeks to talk some more news about Resident Evil, but until then, hope everybody out there staying safe, staying happy, staying healthy, and staying awesome. We'll see you in the next one. See ya.